Ayy, look, yeah, ayy. I'm in the lab like Dexter, brand new batch he tested. I'm with all the extras, don't try and bitch, I'm pressure. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers.
I say we go ahead and move on into the Detroit Lions hype. Of course, as we all know, the Detroit Lions last year finished with a record of 9-8. They were one game out from clinching a playoff spot. They knocked off the Green Bay Packers, and they closed the door on their playoff hopes and their playoff dreams last season. But there's a lot of hype surrounding the Detroit Lions coming into this year. A lot of people believe that these guys have what it takes to win this division. They have what it takes to go toe to toe with any team in the NFL with their high explosive offense. So my question to you guys is, are we buying the Detroit Lions hype?
Not really. I mean, to start off the season, I mean, they lost DJ Chark. They're not gonna have James Williams for 6 games. And so when you look at this offense, the key mark about it, or the question marks and concerns about it were, what are the big plays look like? I mean, it felt like Jared Goff, his average depth, I mentioned this before, his average depth of target was about 7 yards. It was bottom 10 in the league, and that shows who he is. That was the training wheels that Dan Campbell had set on Jared Goff. It was his system of how he would deploy Jared Goff to keep him effective, prevent him from making turnovers. But even then, in away games, Jared Goff wasn't simply not that good. I think if you look at his splits between his home and his away record and how he was playing, it was night and day difference. And so I just feel like because of who Jared Goff is, he's done this before in the past. He's had a good season, and the next season he follows it up having a mediocre average season. I feel like he's one of those quarterbacks where they play into a system, but even then they're always stuck in structure. They can't bail you out. He's not a guy that's gonna elevate your ceiling or elevate your floor. He's not a guy that's going to instantly bump up your offense. And so when I look at this team, even if they did get Jahmyr Gibbs, they have a good offensive line. They have Amon-Ra St. Brown. Outside of that, they lost a big playability in Jameson Williams. They don't have DJ Chark there anymore. They don't have TJ Hawkinson. I feel like they lost a lot of their pieces on the offense. And, of course, defensively, I already mentioned it. I don't think they're a particularly great unit. They have pieces potentially here and there. But overall, I don't think this is a unit that I look at and be like, okay, this is a team that I would fully buy into. I feel like there's more hype, or there should have been more hype for them coming to last season versus this season. I don't feel the same about them coming into this season, and I don't think anybody should. Offensively, I don't see it as much coming into the season in terms of weapons. So
I swear Williamson was not playing last year until the last 2 games?
He wasn't.
Yeah, the back half of the season, he came back from the injury that he had, and then he was able to play a little bit.
I feel like they're going into this beginning of the season just like last year. You add Jahmyr Gibbs, you still have St. Brown, you add Montgomery. The only target you're really missing is Hawkinson. And I feel like they drafted another tight end, which they wanted, and this tight end, Sam Laporte, from Iowa. I guess he was a big time tight end, Hooper. So I feel like, they think that he can be the replacement for Hawkinson. And then the ways that they're talking about Jahmyr Gibbs and the way they're going to use him it sounds crazy. They're going to put him at the outside receiver, in the slot, put him in the backfield. They're going to play him in many positions. So I do want to see how the offense figures out, but I'm running with the hype. I feel like they got a lot to build off from last year. And I feel like once Williamson comes back, their offense, they got a nice, young, talented team. Just like I'd be saying, you got to play into the system. I feel like Jared Goff plays into the system, and he can play well with this type of talent around him. So I do think Detroit's going to build off what they had last year, and I do think they'll be a playoff candidate again this year.
Yeah, 2 years ago, going into last season, they had a record of 3-13. So I'm not too sure if anybody should have hyped them going into last season. But I think number one, I'm not gonna go as far as to say I'm gonna buy in fully into this hype, but I understand how weak our division is. Like the NFC North isn't necessarily a strong division anymore, and so the door is wide open for a lot of teams, for every team pretty much. And the Detroit Lions last year, they sent a message to the rest of the league that they're on their way up. And I know last year I said that they should have had a bad season. They should have tanked to draft a quarterback to jumpstart their rebuild. But Jared Goff wasn't bad last year. Do I think Jared Goff is going to be able to replicate what he did last year? No, I don't think so. But these guys do have all the talent in the world, to have an elite offense in this league. They have all the weapons. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams once he gets back there, their rookie tight end, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery as their 1-2 punch in the backfield. And so this offense, like I said, they can go toe-to-toe with anybody in the league. Their defense is just a true major concern. But they can build off of that. I think Dan Campbell does a great job at getting these guys ready to go each and every week. He's a vocal leader in their locker room as their head coach. And so, he gets those guys ready and prepared each and every week. And I feel like, those guys would run through a wall for him. So, for the Detroit Lions, I think it's just pretty simple. They just gotta be able to continue off what they did last year and utilize, their two rookies very well. Jahmyr Gibbs, all the hype that's coming in, into this season about him. They got to be able to match all of that. Jahmyr Gibbs has to have himself a very solid season, as a running back, as a receiver. And then the rookies, Sam Laporta, he has to make a statement to the franchise saying that, I understand you guys moved off of TJ Hawkinson, but, I'm here now. And I think Jared Goff, although I don't think he's the greatest quarterback in the world, I think he could do a decent amount of job of getting these guys the ball at the right spots. And him and Amon-Ra St. Brown, those guys are going to have a great connection this year. Like I said, they're going to be very, very solid. So I think, I'm not going to buy fully into this hype because there's a lot of people think that these guys are going to, run away with the division. And I just don't see that. I don't think they'll be able to, reach 11, 12, 13 wins. But they'll hover around 9, 10 wins, which 9 wins wouldn't be an improvement from last season, but their style of play, their offense will improve from last season. And if they get to 10 wins, that's a 1-game improvement. So which it would be an improvement. So, I'm not going to buy in fully into the Detroit Lions hype, but I am buying into it a little bit just because of how weak our division is. And I understand that it's so wide open and these guys are going to be competing each and every week. And so, that's kind of where I stand with this whole Detroit Lions hype. I understand a lot of people might be a little bit higher with these guys, but their defense is just my major concern. I just don't know if these guys are going to be able to, hold up on their end while the offense is doing its job. And Jameson Williams, like I said, once he gets back, the offense is going to explode, and it's going to be week 7 when he comes back from that suspension. But overall, though, I'm looking forward to seeing.
This is also Jared Goff split. So at home, 23 passing touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 109 rating, and away. And this is a away record. He had 6 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, 87 passing yards in 7 games. Like, the guy was downright terrible when he was playing. Like, it's like a massive, massive difference when he was playing home and it's away. It's just, and it wasn't even about the weapons that went down for him. It's just completely the difference in terms of his throwing ability and his pressure. I don't think anybody talks enough about Jared Goff. This guy folds under pressure consistently. I don't think there's a reason why the Rams decided to trade him. He had a great year for them. Then the next year he followed up with a very mediocre year. And they decided this guy wasn't the franchise quarterback for them. And Jared Goff, he might. It's not like I don't view him like I view Geno Smith. I don't think they're the same type of tier of quarterback. It may appear that way, but it's not at all. Because when you look at the type of throws and the ability that Geno Smith was displaying last season, it was phenomenal compared to Jared Goff, where it wasn't as outstanding. It wasn't the placement and then the deep ball passes that Geno Smith was displaying. I don't think Jared Goff has that in his locker. And so when I see him, I think he kind of reminds me of Baker Mayfield 2020 when he had that season for the Browns. He had like 26 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Everybody was like, okay, that's a good season for Baker. And then he followed it up with a trash season right after. And so that's how I feel about Jared Goff. I don't think he's as good as displayed. His numbers might look great and all, but when you look at the average depth of target, his home and away record, how he is under pressure, I just don't think that he's capable of uplifting this team to where people are expecting them to be. So,
I mean, I think he is a lot closer to Geno Smith than when you compare the two. I think the only thing that separates Geno Smith from Jared Goff would be just the deep ball ability.
I think Geno Smith's accuracy was absurd last season, absolutely absurd.
I mean, but the thing is, we talked about Geno Smith, and he fell off towards the second half of the season, and the one thing that's different between the two are just the weapons, like DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett.
Absolutely not.
You can utilize those.
I don't
guys.
think so. I don't think
Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't view Amon-Ra St. Brown as like a deep ball guy. You know, he's kind of like the guy that's going to break. Possession wide receiver, a huge yak receiver. You know, like he's not going to beat you over the top. And I think that's what Jameson Williams is for. And that's why I said if they had Jameson Williams from week 1 to start off the season, you know, this offense would be lights out. But unfortunately, he just doesn't have that weapon to utilize his deep ball. And I'm not saying that, you know, that's like something that he has in his locker, but I think he can throw the ball. He can throw the ball deep if he has a weapon out there. But that's just really the only difference between him and Geno Smith. I think they're very similar quarterbacks, but just Geno has the better weapons as of right now, you know, with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. And then now they added JSN into the mix. So it's kind of like you can't compete with the other skill positions when you compare the two. But I mean, I don't think Jared Goff's the greatest quarterback in the world, but I think, you know, for this system, I think he does his job pretty well. And the same thing would happen to Geno Smith towards the second half of the season. You know, it's just Jared Goff in road games. You know, he just wasn't good on the road, but at home he was phenomenal. But I'm not going to go as far as to say, he's just like another Baker Mayfield, because I think Jared Goff has a lot more good years under his belt in comparison to a guy like Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, he might have more good years than Baker Mayfield, but it's the same type of thing where, you know, they play great under a certain system that's deployed under them, and then the next year they go mediocre. It happened with him early under Sean McVay, and if you can't be productive in a system that Sean McVay sets up for you, then what does that say about you as a quarterback? And I think that Jared Goff was at fault. And so I brought up the Baker Mayfield example as well. These years where these quarterbacks play great under a certain system, and then the next year they become mediocre, and that's just how I think Jared Goff will operate this next season. I don't think anything that he's been doing is particularly impressive. He does what he's asked to do, and that may be a good thing. But quarterbacks like that, they don't elevate you, because sometimes you need to play out of structure. You need to play out of It's the reason why I brought up Geno Smith as an example is because some of the throws and some of the stuff that Geno Smith was doing was out of structure. He was making plays that were absolutely phenomenal. The same thing isn't said about Jared Goff, and that's the reason why I was talking about his average depth of target. And it even just because of Jameson Williams, it's just how he was employed. It was how he was employed, and Dan Campbell sees him as a quarterback that needs training wheels on. And so I don't think Jared Goff will be able to elevate this Detroit Lions team, but you know, we have to wait and see.
I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see.
Record a new hit, then we making us a film. Wouldn't sign a deal if I got a couple mil. Been in the lab, now they throwing out deals. Yes, now late, now that's overkill.